the gallery guestbook with my name and someone else's message. The gallery keeps its guestbook on a lectern by the door like a polite trap. Heavy cream pages, black ribbon, a pen on a chain that makes people think before they sign. I was only there to deliver letterpress postcards for the show. Thick stock, soft gray ink. The title blindly bossed the way some words deserve to be whispered. And I glanced at the book because printers are nosy about paper. My eye found my own name before my brain understood the sentence around it. Someone had written in the margin in a hand that practiced stopping, "For Daniel Studio 4B, 11:30 p.m. if you still want the truth. J." I rested both palms on the edge of the lectern. The pen's chain ticked once against the metal like an involuntary witness. Caleb had texted 2 hours earlier to say the board meeting had mutated into dinner again. He'd be late and grateful. He would smell like cedar when he came home. He always did on nights the museum pretended the city loved it for the right reasons. I set the postcards on the desk in the office behind the main hall and told the intern which stack was for which pile. I walked past the sculpture that looks expensive and temporary and told myself I was headed home to sleep. Studio 4B sits in an old factory 4 blocks away. By the time I reached the corner, my hands had turned the note into a root. I could have waited until morning to ask the question in our kitchen. We keep 2 glasses by the sink for a reason. Pour, then talk. We're responsible men who have learned the choreography of decency. I had printed invitations for 2 weddings that afternoon. The smell of ink had left me honest and impatient. I wanted an answer in a room without a table. The building's freight elevator pretends it likes you when you lean. I rode past floors that remembered noise better than rent. Studio 4B was the first door on the right, frosted glass with a hairline crack someone had decided not to fix because it looked like intention. I knocked because my grandfather taught me that hinges are owed courtesy, even when the people behind them are not. Jonah opened the door with one hand on the frame as if it needed to be reminded of the plan. Taller than the first time I saw him across a lobby, hair in truce with the hour, a black t-shirt soft with turpentine and thrift. Behind him the studio yawned. Canvases leaned like questions. A metal stool waited in the exact way metal waits. The air carried citrus cleanser and decisions. He smelled like cedar and 10 o'clock. "You came," he said. He said it like a fact, not a victory. "You wrote my name in a book that belongs to strangers," I said. The chain on the pen clicked at me. A faint smile tried and failed to become mischief. He stepped back but didn't touch the door. 2 glasses sat on a taboret, already sweating. A bottle of water stood there like our better nature forced into a shape. Caleb's jacket hung on the back of a chair, the navy one with the stitch he pretends isn't there. My palm hovered over the shoulder of the jacket and retreated. Fabric shouldn't be asked to testify. "I didn't want you to hear about me from the version of him that performs apologies," Jonah said. He stayed near the sink, not because he needed it, but because the faucet looked like a promise. "He thinks he's meeting me here to end something politely. I thought you should have the room before there's a speech." "How long?" I asked. He breathed like a man who has learned to count backward. 8 months, he said. "It started with rain and an elevator and a lobby that sells permission. I ended it twice. He sent me a photo of your breakfast with a complaint about the height of a label. I respected his paragraph against my better judgment." He came closer. The studio floor creaked in the half-beat between movement and confession. He stopped with an inch between his fingers and my wrist. That inch was explicit. Heat negotiated with my skin in a language my ethics don't speak. He didn't touch me. He watched my mouth the way men do when truth needs a chaperone and their bodies offer to drive. The restraint was indecently kind. The door behind me opened with a small sound that thinks it can become dignity if you let it. Caleb stepped in wearing the face he gives donors who want to be told they're right for the wrong reasons. He saw me. He saw Jonah. He saw the jacket. He didn't look at the cot in the corner because professionals know which surfaces deserve attention first. He closed the door with a Hinge's version of respect. "Okay," he said. The word fell into the studio like a placeholder that had earned tenure. "You could have kept the note out of the guest book," I said. "You chose not to." "I chose incompetence," he said. "And then cowardice. I cheated. I told myself it was weather and home is a noun that survives rain. I told myself your patience is elastic because you build invitations to futures for a living. I told myself the spark I felt was structure. I would like to stop hearing me." Jonah had moved to the window the way decent men do when air needs a job. He lifted his hand again toward my neck and stopped at that same inch. Heat remembered. My body wrote a petition. I stamped it later. He lowered his hand like a person who has learned not to write his name where it doesn't belong. "What do you want me to do?" Caleb asked. His voice had the humility of someone who knows grammar is work, not charm. "You'll end it," I said. "You'll sleep on the couch we refuse to call a guest anything. Next week you'll tell me what this was twice, once with your careful museum voice, once with small words that don't need a label. I'll decide what my hands can hold without lying to my wrists." "I'll do that," he said, and the quiet agreed. Jonah exhaled. He crossed the studio and came close enough for breath to write itself along my jaw. He put his mouth by my ear without touching me. The heat of it rearranged furniture and left no mess. "Thank you for not making me into a moral," he said, and the sentence gave me a place to stand. He took his coat from the chair and left without using the door as punctuation. Caleb and I sat on the metal stool and the paint-spattered crate because chairs with cushions encourage lies. The water glasses sweated a reasonable amount. The studio watched us decide who we were going to be tomorrow. "I'm not leaving tonight," I said. "We'll walk home without touching. We'll wait at crosswalks because other people's knees and our better natures both deserve seconds. You'll sleep on the couch. Tomorrow you'll end it without complimenting him. Next week you'll bring me small words." He nodded. He didn't cry. I still love him for that. We walked. The city didn't add opinion. On the corner, a cyclist skimmed the curb and his hand reached in reflex. His palm hovered near my hip, and I hated and adored that restraint for being the most erotic thing about us and the least damaging one available. At home, the kettle performed and then behaved. He arranged blankets on the couch with curator care. I slept like someone who had disassembled a device and wasn't ready to test it. In the morning he came back from a lobby that sells permission smelling like nothing, the cologne I recommend. He told me he had ended it. He told me the truth twice. In his museum voice, narrative smoothed bone. In small words, he said he liked being two men because one of them wasn't tired. He said he mistook spark for structure. He said he could be one person if I let him do the work. I let him. This is the part that never makes a poster because it refuses to sell tickets. He slept on the couch for 6 nights and learned the distance between our door and our bed like a new route he was going to keep. On the 7th he came to me and remembered my mouth with the lazy precision we taught each other early and almost forgot. Erotic is not a command. It's a compliance you volunteer after choosing. 2 days later, Jonah texted a single line. "Thank you for letting me tell the truth with the lights on." I wrote back, "Try it when nobody's lighting you." He didn't reply, which was the second best thing he did. Work returned to being exact and unimpressed with itself. I stitched a book whose spine had given up years ago and felt paper agree to live a little longer. I refused a client who wanted a mole removed from a grandmother's portrait, and explained that scars can be the most honest part. I printed an open for a bakery that wanted mirrors and gave them air instead. The owner framed the space with two ferns and later said the day felt less loud. A week later, I saw Jonah on the museum steps. He looked smaller. Maybe my anger had stopped needing him to be tall. He said hello without asking to hold my afternoon hostage. He did not smell like cedar. We stood under the awning long enough to absolve the weather, then left without auditioning for a moral. Here is the part I have not been noble about. I wanted him. I wanted the inch, the heat, the way his restraint taught my skin manners. I wanted to make a beautiful mistake and narrate it into something almost useful. I didn't. Wanting is a sentence, not a command. Bodies vote. Ethics count. Boredom is a mercy that keeps mourning possible. Caleb and I adjusted the frame of our days. 2 glasses before 3 sentences. Less reach, better touch. We stopped letting the kettle set tone. We stand near exits at openings not because we plan to leave, but because rooms breathe better when doors aren't theirs. Sometimes we sit on benches not because we're tired, but because courage looks like patience if you get the light right. If another guest book writes my name beside a sentence that thinks it's fate, I will bring water. I will sit where the exit is obvious and not call that cowardice. If a hand lifts toward my neck, I will let the inch exist and answer in a tense I can carry past noon. I will keep choosing verbs that keep us possible. End, stay, tell, work, touch, wait. And when I lay a strip of linen over a rescued spine and feel signatures gather into a book that will open without breaking, I will think about the night in the studio where we refused a finale and argued for repair instead. And I will call that quiet air the most difficult thing I know how to make, and the only thing that still holds when daylight forgets its lines.